Good evening, ladies. It is day one of week one, October 13th. This is MED210, Anatomy and Physiology, and the 6NAX connotes that it's Wednesday evening, 6 p.m. Please check your emails daily from the university, your official Stratford email, and these announcements because things may change. Also, I don't know, there's been some technical difficulties lately with Zoom, with the university's own server. So always be on the lookout. And since this class is hybrid, there's going to be laboratory dates. And if you click on it, you look at MED210 6NAX Wednesday, 6 p.m. on November 10, December 1, and December 8. If you cannot make these dates, please get a formal email out to me explaining why you can't make these dates. And we're gonna have a lot of nice protocols to keep you safe. But if you still do not feel safe coming to school and coming for these laboratories, we can talk offline and have different arrangements. So always check your announcements. I also put extra credit on here. I also put practice items like practice exams. This is the area where you will be getting your midterm and final. We're going to be talking about that momentarily. Now, typically I would go through the syllabus, but like I said, it's just given us a lot of glitchiness. I've tried it on even different things like different servers and different different things other than Safari for Mac, and I don't know, it takes forever to load, and I don't want to take up your time with that. So I'm just gonna do it, verbally, and this video will serve as an outline of your syllabus. So the first thing you have to know and understand is this is a 10-week program, and every week there's a task, discussion, and lesson. And on the 5th week, jump right up to week 5. In week 5, there'll be a midterm, 50 items, multiple choice, based on items from weeks 1, 2, 3, and 4. And on week 10, and I know this is going to be the holiday season, everyone's going to try to wrap up early. So you can take the exam early. We're going to be taking it week 10. If you want to take it at week 9, please get it out to me. Get a formal request because you can take it early, but you can't take it late. So again, the final exam will be also cumulative, 50 items, multiple choice, and it will be on the items from week 5, week 6, week 7, week 8, and week 9. Now, the best way to look at your grades is every week is worth 10%. So on week 5, you have a midterm, that's 10%. Week 10, you have a final exam, that's 10%. And then all the other weeks, like this week, to get your first 10%, by next week, the 20th, 6 p.m., you should have done your task, your discussion, and your lesson by Wednesday, October 20 by 6 p.m. For every 24 hours that you do not perform it, it'll be automatically deducted 10%. And what I like to do is the second you don't, let's say, for example, you didn't do your task, okay? And it's Wednesday, October 20th, and it's already, the end of the class session. It's like 8:30 already. Well, I'm going to start putting in zeros. Now, what does that mean? Does it mean that 0 stays there forever? No, it doesn't. I like doing that because it sends an automated message to you, usually up here. So pay attention to these things up here, this bell and this messaging thing. So if you see like red numbers here, click on it, and because this is a notification bell for things that are due or grades that are posted, and also utilize the messaging system here as well to talk to either me or your other professors or your other classmates. One-on-one communication would be my cell phone. Text me first. This is a business cell phone. I have my own production company, so I pick up. So if you call me at 2 o'clock in the morning, the odds of me picking up are pretty good because I might think it's a client. So please text first and make sure you have your full name and of course the issue and the class in question, because I'm teaching 5 courses and I have over 100 advisees. So when you text me or even email me, I'd like to know some details so I can bring up your name and any other records on the computer so it can be easily referenced. And of course, the Zoom ID number for this class, 798-568-3282, or if you look up in your daily announcements, here for our first session, there's the Zoom information here as well, okay? Okay, and reach out to me. Many times, a lot of the trouble that students get into academically is not because they can't perform the academics, is because, life just gets in our way. So please keep that communication open with me and your professors. And if you see an email, don't ignore it. If you see an email from student accounts, answer it immediately. And that's why I'm not exaggerating when I state, check daily. There's something could be going on, and check your official Stratford University email. There's some frightening things that I have 30 students who are, no, not 30, that's an exaggeration, 20 about. There's about 20 students not registered for class. We've been trying to call them and email them for the last 5 weeks. And you don't get registered by Friday, you get dropped from the program, and that's potential financial issues. And we don't want to get there, okay? So please, again, to reiterate, communicate often, always check, always be diligent. And this course, of course, is anatomy and physiology. If you cut it into pieces, Tomi to cut into Anna parts, right? Analysis is, lysis is breakdown of Anna parts, and physiology, logi, the study of the physics of it all, which is, what do you call that? How
the functions?
Yeah, the function, how things work together, how these parts work together. And we're not really gonna be discussing pathology, but a lot of times I'll mention like an example of what pathology is. Logi, which is study of patho, disease. And all pathology is just taking this and messing it up. Because if you know normal, it's easy for you to, or easier for you to understand abnormal. And I always mention that pathology in the School of Nursing, for those of you, or most of you should be headed out for nursing, is one of the high valued topics, not only for the NCLEX, it also has one of the largest amount of F grades, which is no bueno. So, and it all comes down to, it's one thing to know things for grades. Try to focus on trying to get this stuff into long-term memory. And I know it's rough. Going to school when we were kids was easy, but going to school as an adult, there's so many things going on. And I feel for each and every one of my students, because I am also a student. I am finishing up my master's degree in business administration with a concentration in finance. There are moments where I wonder, where do I get the time? But make the time daily. Right now, George Mason is on like kind of like a 1 week break, but what am I doing? I'm still doing work every day of the week. And I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed by any means, but I'm the hardest working one, and I'm diligent. It's called due diligence in business, and it's checking up every day, following up things every day. And a guy like me, B grades, the majority of my academic career, you got to wonder, how does a guy with B grades get a master's degree in physical chemistry, and soon to finish up an MBA and have an MD on top of all that. And I run my own business, and I have 6 children. So all of us have our crosses to bear. But get your communication out. And if you can ask for an extension, right, and it's legit, give me a call, right? And or let's say you're falling behind, give me a call. Let's do a tutoring session. We can do a Zoom tutoring session. Or if you're on campus Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, or can get to campus Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, give me a call, and you can visit me on campus. And my office is on the 4th floor of the Alexandria campus, and it's in the faculty lounge, and it is the first cubicle right in front of the door. But don't try to call my office phone. If you see it in my email, I almost never pick up my office phone. And my office phone is glitchy as all heck, so I never answer it. But I definitely answer my email, and I definitely answer my cell phone. And if you do not get something back within 24 hours, 1 or 2 things happen. I'm either dead or I didn't get it, okay? And odds are I'm not dead, so I probably didn't get it. So shoot me another email, shoot me another call. Shoot me another text, and then I'll get back to you. Okay, now I got those public service announcements out of the way. Also late out of the way. And in the syllabus, if ever you have the patience to open it and it opens up for you, let's try today. Let's see if it'll open up for us. But I waited almost 11 minutes earlier this afternoon, and it didn't open. It gave me some sort of message. Yeah, it's not cooperating. But it eventually cooperates. Another thing you could also do is tutor.com. But my thing is, the best person to ask regarding your class is your professor. So always reach out early, always reach out often. Now, there's a potential for you to cheat all over this class or any online class. My message to you guys is, odds are you probably won't get caught. But if you do get caught, that's going to be a problem, because we're in healthcare and trust is a pretty important thing. Now, and I always tell this story about my good friend. He was a surgeon. His name is, well, it's not his real name, it was his nickname. And let's call him Dr. B, right? Dr. B cheated his way through medical school. And I knew it, but he was a friend, and I ignored it because he's a friend. I'm not going to be a tattletale. Well, he cheated on his boards. Then he became a resident in surgery, okay? Now, he cheated because he's part of a 6th generation group of surgeons. He already got kicked out of one medical school because of his grades. So there was a lot of pressure on him to do well. But here's the problem. He had this history of cheating. And then he cheated when he was a resident. Then he got prosecuted through the maximum extent of the law. He had not only criminal charges brought upon him, he also had civil suit brought upon him by both the patients and the hospital. He was disgraced, and now is living in the basement with his mom. He's a smart guy, but can't be trusted. He was a darn good surgeon, in my opinion, but cannot be trusted. And that is the one thing you cannot violate as a healthcare professional. So if you're going to cheat, really think twice about it, because you're going to need this skill set, and you're going to need these things in the real world where it counts. And if you're okay with people dying on your watch or people getting hurt on your watch, I'm telling you, your colleagues will not be okay with it. And they will prosecute you to the maximum extent of the law. And healthcare is just no joke when it comes to the violation of trust. But you see it every day. Doctors, nurses, everybody cheats, and everyone eventually gets caught. Some people don't, but they do a lot of damage to not only their own careers, but to everyone around them. So that's my thing, and that's the one thing I'm super proud of, that all throughout all this education, I've never cheated ever. And I had more than my opportunity. I had, and you can't imagine the pressure to succeed in graduate school. Medical school, when you get your master's degree and all that, there's so much pressure because you think your undergraduate bill is big. A typical bill for medical school is in the $220,000 range. So, and I always quote this statistic. There were 444 students who came in day one in medical school. Only 68 went to graduation, and only out of that 68, less than 30 actually got to practice. So you can only imagine the stress and the temptation to cheat and to cut corners. But they find you out and they get rid of you pretty darn quick. So this task. So enough this doom and gloom, because I don't think we have that kind of personality here on this call, nor in our program. Just be careful of plagiarism, and then I'll be talking a little bit about that in a moment when we talk about our discussions. So today we'll be talking about our first line of defense, which is our integument system, or our skin. And it also deals with also what they call our innate body defenses, which are our chemical barriers, and such as mucosal lining, tears, cilia, and stomach acid. But before we do that, let me explain what is due next week on the 20th. See somebody in chat? Okay, no question. So the first thing you got to do is download, sign, and upload the safety contract. If you don't know where that is, you go back to the first page of our Moodle and you click on this course introduction. And in the course introduction, you go all the way to the bottom. You scroll down to the bottom to important documents. And there you go, you click on this little arrow, lab guides, lab safety contract. Click on that and click on this lab safety contract. Once you download it, you open it up, you print it out, and you print your name up here, your full name, and then you sign and then date it. Take a picture of it or scan it and then get it to me. Or you can, fill it in, electronically. You could, like what I would do like this. I open up the lab contract, right? I can put my name in here. Right, you put your name, maybe a stickler and underline it. And then here, if I want to like sign it, of course, put the date. What's today's date? 10/13. Almost Halloween. Oh, criminal. What did I do wrong? Right, you put your date, and then right here in signature, you can click on draw. Right, like that. There you go. And then of course you file, you save it, save the file, and then of course once you have the saved file, you go back into your task 1. And then click here. There'll be like some button here that says submit. Okay? And get a quick 100 points. Easy peasy. Then let's talk about your discussion. The CDC has issued an alert. This was years ago when the course was revamped, and they were talking about Zika virus. Well, to say you could talk about Zika or any virus or any of these nasty viruses the world has, like Ebola or COVID, if you want to talk about that. Based on how the virus is spread, right? First tell me, how does viruses spread? How do they get past our body defenses, or do they get past our body defenses? And what can we do to decrease the chance? So there's 3 things. So when you make your, go back to Microsoft Word. When you make your, and those of you who had me before, should be a nice little review. When you make your initial post, you have to have an introduction. Of course, you have a middle part section, a body, and you have a conclusion. So in your introduction, what should you put? Your opinion, or all the things that you know, your former knowledge off the top of your head to answer the questions. Or define the questions. Okay, like what's a virus? What are barriers? What are the natural barriers, which is part of this lecture? Okay, and with your opinion and the definitions, you should have a rationale or reasoning on why you think it makes sense. Now, one of the most important parts of your submission is the body, because that's where we have evidence in the form of 7th edition APA citations, at least one. So according to the National Institute of Health, right, it could be a .org, it could be a .gov, or it could be a .edu, right? Make sure you got it from a legit source, and make sure the source is like relatively new, you know, from 2020 to 2021. Because I don't want old news about the virus. Because remember in the beginning of coronavirus, it's totally different what we know now than what we did a year ago. So you try to get the most, and how do you do it? So for example, I want to talk about Zika virus. Let's do a quick search. Let's say I want to talk a little bit about the Zika virus. So I want to talk about Zika virus. I guess update. What's going on? Zika virus in 2021. Hey, look at this. Some cases. That's a .gov. That's the Center for Disease Control. That's a good one to hit up. Another Center for Disease Control. That's a good one to hit up. But this helio.com, nah, that's a .com, right? Here, Westchester County Department of Health. Yeah, you can hit that up. World Health Organization. So all of these things, so let's say I got it from like this, World Health Organization. So I'm looking at it, I'm gonna check, okay, it looks like a legit. So I go down to see if there's any dates. All the way down at the bottom, typically. Did it get updated? No, it's not giving me a date. So if it doesn't give me a date, heaven knows when this stuff was done. Look at it, 2015, 2016. Nah, sorry, I'm gonna get something else. So that's what you're doing. Let's try this one. Let's see. Oh, 2021. Provisional data as of October 5. Wonderful. Is it a legit source? Yep, it's a .gov, Center for Disease Control. So let's say I want to talk about Zika virus, okay? And I picked something in here, and I quoted it. So you see this? Once you can right-click it, you copy it, you find something like bibme.org. There's a whole bunch of websites like this that build citations. So I click on, and my apologies if I'm going too fast, but you can replay the video. Also, I'll also tell you, of course, website, APA format. I put the website or the thing I was looking for here. It tells me, is this what you want to look at? Yes, it does. I select on it, right? And then I click on final step. And look, there was no author, but lovely, lovely. Look at that, 2021. It's from a legit thing. Center for Disease Control. So I want to create that citation. And it's right here. I copy and paste it. Then let me go back to my original article or my original Microsoft Word that I'm gonna, and somewhere beyond my conclusion, I'll paste it right here. Boom. And within my evidence, I'll say something like, according to the 2021 statistics, statistics from the CDC, blah, 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 right? And now you're referring to your citation. Okay? So that's how you do a proper post. You have to have an proper initial post. Have to have an introduction, some sort of body. Make sure there make sure it's referring to back to the citation that you chose. And you can have more than one, because if I'm talking about Zika virus, I got to define Zika virus. Then I got to define barriers. Then I got to find where the Zika virus could get beyond the barriers, or viruses in general. So it's not just like your typical book report, like this is Zika virus. You're answering specific questions. Now for this week, only do your initial post. You don't answer to anybody yet. But when you eventually do next week, when we start answering each other on our posts, you do the same thing, but in a much, much quicker and shorter thing. Like, so let's say, for example, I wrote something like, according to 2021 statistics of CDC, I believe that we shouldn't worry about Zika virus. It's COVID that we should be worrying about. But I found some other evidence that's different. Then I could answer that post like, dear Melissa, it goes, it is my opinion that that Zika virus still is important, not in the United States, but in other parts of the world. According to another paper that I found, it stated that in Europe, the 2021 statistics showed that Zika virus on the rise, or whatever, right? That's actually how you should answer your colleagues, respectfully and with evidence. And we're trying to do that because we're now, well, we've actually been living in a world where no one really listens to data. Everyone has their own opinion, like with politics. Everyone like, oh, this person's awful, and then you ask them why. Well, they just are. They're racist, or they don't do anything for poor people. And I go, well, where's the data in that? Now, it could be true, but if you're not citing actual evidence, then how do I know it's true? And why do you have to have a conclusion? Because sometimes, and this happens to me a lot, I have an opinion when I answer my questions, but then when I do the research, I realize my opinion may be flawed or may have some issues in it. So I'm going to put that in my conclusion like, oh, I thought Zika virus was dead. But after I looked at some statistics, I think we should be looking at Zika virus as well as COVID. We should be looking at, that pile of danger as well. So those are the three parts. Your introduction, which has typically these things. Your body, which gives, the evidence to what you're saying in your definitions. And last but not least, your conclusion, stating that, hey, this is what I found, and this is what I have. And then right at the very end, you copy and paste your actual 7th edition APA formatted citation. And it tells me everything. It tells me the website, oh, that's legit. It tells me the date, oh, that's cool. It doesn't have any authors, but I'm all right with it because you got it from a legit source, and it's crazy new. 2021, October 5. Lovely, it was just last week they updated it. And that's how you write a college level discussion. And I find it also really sad that even in graduate school, people don't do that. And people get really, it starts becoming like Troll City when they start replying. But as I always do well on my discussions because I follow that format. And also it shows you how you can really expand this and really how you can also relate it to the topic that we're going to be talking about, which is the integumentary system and our barrier defenses. So with that being said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I got all 5 of you. Wonderful, wonderful. That's the discussion. That's due next week, October 20 by 6 p.m. Late protocols will be in effect. And last but not least, your lesson. If you click on lesson, do not do the bacterial identification laboratory. We're not doing that. But what do you typically submit? You'll typically submit your case study. So you have a case study here. You click on it. Click on download case. You read the case, and then there are questions. So what I typically would do is I'd read the case. This is what I would do. I would get all the questions, copy and paste them onto a separate Microsoft Word document, put it on the side, look at the questions, and then read the case. It's also a good NCLEX strategy. Reading the questions first before you read, reading the questions first before you read the case, so that you can now know what you're looking for. So like right off the bat, define the terms and study define the terms. So there's a term like melanin, what's electrolytes, what's glucose, what's the first degree burn, right? It's easy peasy, right? You could just Google it, or write it up in very short sentences, and yes, complete sentences in context of the case. Okay, our patient Mark lost 4 liters. What percentage of his body water did he lose? And, you know, I'm okay with you not doing the math. You know, you just do, you know, you can do an estimate, actually. Actually, you know, let me look at part 1, part 2, part 3. No, the rest of it's good. But this number 2, I'm okay if you're not so hot at math, because many of you have yet to take your Math 111 or your pharmacology yet. So with that being said, with that being said, let's wrap this up on what's due so we can get to the lecture proper. What's due next week, October 20, 6 p.m. Your task, which is your lab contract, your discussion, 200 to 250 words, and your initial discussion. You're not going to reply to anyone in this discussion for discussion 1. Next week, we get to reply to each other, okay? And make sure it's 200 to 250 words. It's organized with a distinct beginning, middle, and end, introduction, body, and conclusion, and it has at least 1 7th edition APA formatted citation. Okay, and last but not least, hand in those, it's like 7 or 8 questions, put it in a Microsoft Word document, and label it lesson 1. Now, this is another thing, one of my also pet peeves. Many times you guys do this, 1, 2, 3, and then you just answer. And then the file is called document 3. Don't do that, because if you have other professors who, like from this class, I know who's who. So there's only like what, 80, so it's easy. But imagine if you have a class with 40, 50, 60 people in it. Your professor doesn't know what this is, and they see the inside of the document. There's no identifier on who you are. The best bet is, see this, like where it's gray up here, right? I started typing here, but there's this gray area right here. Double click on that and it'll open up your header. So you can put your name up here. What's the assignment? And for this one, it's like lesson 1, case study. And the date, let's say I did it. And please try not to do your homework on the 19th. You know, start it tonight, start it tomorrow. Because the quicker you can get it out, the quicker I can reply back to you to tell you, hey, this is good, that's good, so I can give you comments. So if it's not so good, you can correct it and fix it for a better, higher grade, okay? So you put your name in there, and then like if it overflows to other pages, your name and what it is will always be there. And then of course you answer the question, blah, 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 right? And the next one, blah, 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 right? And then of course make sure to always save it. And see, I'm stupid. I should always have my autosave turned on, okay? And then when you save it, of course, put your student name, then what it is, lesson 1, and then 10, 14, 2021. And that's how, and then, so when I open up the file, where the file goes missing, you can not only find it, you can also find the date, and it'll have some sort of timestamp, okay? So those are my little little hints and strategies on how to not only be organized. And I love it because when people ask me stuff like, hey, do you have that one document from like 3 years ago? You go, yep. I could find it. I have scanned every case of every patient that I ever touched in 9 years. So every time a lawyer calls and says, hey, you're in a class action lawsuit, it doesn't happen all the time, but because if you were on staff of the hospital and someone's trying to sue the hospital and your name's up, usually the statute of limitations for medical records is around 5 to 7 years. But man, some of these shiesty lawyers, excuse my French, right? They want blood, but they're not going to get it from me because I am highly organized, and I make sure that I keep everything and I have it organized. And that's the same thing for professors. How many times I'm in the middle as an advisor where the student says, but I put it in there, and the professor goes, well, we don't see it. And remember, if I don't see it, that's also another reason why immediately, if I don't see it come the 20th after class, I start putting zeros because they're used as placeholders. Because if the student doesn't do anything about it, then it stays a zero. But if I don't put anything in it, the grade report doesn't count it and so it changes your grade. So it's at this point, right before we start our lecture proper, does anyone have any questions? And my apologies if I'm going a little bit fast, but I really want to get into this chapter. And also, I record all of my lectures and I put them on YouTube, and the links are in your announcements a couple of hours after every class. Does anyone have any questions? You could put it in the chat as we go along. I'll be monitoring the chat, or you can, raise your hand. There's a raise your hand function as well. So without further ado, if no one has any questions, let's jump right in and let's go into the integumentary system and body defenses and protections. And that is chapter 5.1. So I want to go to chapter 5.1. I go to the main page, right? I go down and I click on Anatomy and Physiology by OpenStax. I click on that. I don't want to give them money. It's free. Table of contents. I scroll all the way down to 5. And that's where we are. So the integumentary system. So let's look at our objectives. Now, for those of you who already had me before, please bear with me. You know I always say the same 8 things. If you want to fall asleep, if you want to be bored, and I know my lecture and anyone's lecture is not, it's not a blockbuster film that you're recognizing. It's not going to capture your interest all the time, but you have to have the discipline of something called active listening. Now, active listening is, like I mentioned before, if you know your objectives, it's like in the case study that you're reading the questions first before you read the case study. If you know your objectives, then it's easier for you to scan. Have you guys ever wondered how doctors, nurses, engineers, and lawyers can read thousands of pages in a day? It's not that we're superhuman or we're really, really, really geniuses. No, we already know how to break down textbooks and get to the meat, get to the thing that we want to know. So if you look here, integumentary system, everything that we're doing in anatomy and physiology deals with homeostasis. Homeo, same, stasis, to stand in one place, to regulate your body. You can't be too far to the left, you can't be too far to the right, you can't be too much, you can't be too little. You always need to be in the middle. Layers of skin, accessory structures, right? Aging process, and we're just gonna touch a little bit on some disorders, okay? But remember, this is not a pathology class, so we're not going to be discussing these last 2 bullet points. So right off the bat, I need to know, what's the integumentary system made out of? What are the layers of skin? What are the functions of each layer? And what are the accessory structures that are involved with the skin? And what does aging do naturally to my skin? Now, right before an exam, did you ever, you always ask the professor or the teacher or the instructor, you always ask them, hey, what's going to be on the exam? Doesn't this scream what's going to be on the exam? So I could have 2 questions here, 2 questions here, 2 questions here, so 2 questions here. So you should be actively listening to, hey, what's an important question? And right off the bat, what should you be doing tonight right after this class? Re-looking at all the layers of skin and memorizing all their functions, because that's definitely going to come out. Knowing and all the accessory structures. And then what do? Every day you review it. Every day you're getting it into long-term memory, because you're going to need it not for this exam, not only for this exam in 5 weeks or 4 weeks, you're going to need it for your NCLEX, you're going to need it for your practice and beyond. So it's not only today. You're going to need it for forever, essentially. So let's look at the layers. So right off the bat, doesn't this look like, let me make it a little bit bigger. Doesn't this look like something I could put on the exam? Right? Because this is an anatomy exam, right? Tomi to cut into Hannah parts, that's anatomy. Could I just erase all of these and start doing A, B, C, D, E, F, G? How about this? You don't want to do that? How's this? Can I look up? Hit on images. Whoa, lo and behold, look at that. Can I do that at home? Can I do this at home? Isn't this the same exact picture? How's this? Before I go hop on the bus to go to work, or while I'm dealing with my kids and laundry and whatnot, right? Don't you think I could review this for 5 minutes every morning? Yeah, why not? Keep on doing it even long after you leave this class. My daughter has graduated over 2 years ago, nursing. She just passed her MCATs, which is the medical college, what's A stand for? Aptitude or admissions test? Whatever, it's just called the MCAT, right? Medical college aptitude or admissions test. And she aced it, and she's just waiting to hear back from her applications to medical school. Well, meanwhile, I'm trying to figure out what bank I'm going to rob to pay for all this. Well, what do you think she's doing every day? She too is an entrepreneur. She owns her own juicing business, because a year ago she couldn't stand what the pandemic was doing to the career of nursing. And those of you who had me in the class before, you heard me rant about this. But you know what she does every morning? She hits up all her old review material every day, even on Sundays. Why? Because she knows if you don't use it, you lose it. It's very easy. Okay? And those of you who are coming back into the education game after years of not being in school, you guys know what I'm talking about. I remember 4 years ago when I got back, I mean, I'm an educator. You'd think that, studying should become easy for me. But when I started up my MBA three and a half, 4 years ago, man, I was rusty. And it was really hard. So it's just like working out in the gym. Do it every day. Work out your brain as much as you work out in the gym. And you guys know, those of you who know me know that right after this course, right after I answer some emails, you know where I'm going to be, right? I got to go to the gym. I gotta fight the good fight. So let's look at these quick layers. Use your medical terminology powers. You see this? This is your epidermis. The prefix epi means on top of, so that's got to be the very top layer. The dermis, that's the main layer. The hypodermis, also known as your subcutaneous tissue, see how it contains all the fat and all the blood vessels? So if I put a needle through the top of here, it's not going to hurt that much. It may not even hurt at all. My sister and I used to play this horrific game when we were kids. We used to try to put my mother's, we used to get into my mother's sewing box and put needles through our skin. We thought it was hilarious. Until, if it goes too deep, you hit one of these nerves, right? And it'll hurt. Or if it goes deep enough into the dermis, and definitely into the hypodermis, or also known as your subcutaneous tissue, it's gonna hit a blood vessel, and you're gonna start to bleed. There's also sweat glands. There's also hair follicles with oil glands that secrete sebum, and that's your sebaceous gland. So I could ask you, I could erase all this, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and I point at this. Does this secrete oil or sweat? I could point at this. Does it secrete oil or sweat? What's this? Is that an artery, vein, or nerve? If it's yellow and it's like this, and if it's, especially if it's associated with this deep touch Pacinian corpuscle, that's a nerve ending. That's right here, and it's deep. And then you have arteries and veins. The arteries are colored red. They're not red in real life. They're all different shades of brown and gray. But red connotes that the red blood cells inside that particular tube is mostly oxygenated, has oxygen. And the blue, which are veins or venous blood, that typically has deoxygenated blood, which is, of course, carbon dioxide. So right off the bat, this picture's worth 1,000 words. Guess what? This picture is worth a good 10, 15 items, potential items that could be on the exam. So if you already figured it out, right, before the exam should go quite smooth. Now, the epidermis is in the very tippy top layer. I know that's a little, it's a little bit hard to see here. Let's look at the, well, no, I'm jumping ahead of myself. But the epidermis is the tippy top layer, and it has keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. So what does that mean? Squamous cells are flat cells. So if we look at the very top of our skin, let's look at this. It's flat, and these are called squamous cells. And then they'll get a little bit more boxy or columnar as they become basal cells. And your epidermis has this protein called keratin. And the keratin kind of makes it hard and semi-waterproof. And these squamous cells, the ones that are on the top here, they are, they're actually not alive. They're dead. And they act like shingles on a roof to protect the living cells, which are down here. So let's look at, so keratin, right? Where's the keratin? Here it is. Keratinocyte is the cell, of course, that makes keratin, and it's a fibrous protein. It gives hair, nails, and skin hardness and water-resistant properties. By the way, you could slather all the keratin on your body all you want. The best way to improve your keratin and your skin is through diet. Don't eat garbage. Don't eat too oily stuff. And that's the irony of it all. Oily stuff ruins all this, all right? So I could ask you what keratin is, and it's associated with the epidermis. I could ask you the very top layer of the epidermis. Is it living cells? Nope. They're dead cells. Now here is an even more detailed picture, which I could easily do what on the exam? Erase all of this, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So you have the stratum corneum, stratum lucidum, and it's the lucid or the clear. Stratum granulosum, which has, when you have the word lamellar, means there's like layers or, yeah, that's the best way. Layers of cells that have granules in it. Then you have your spinosum, which has a lot of keratinocytes in it, and that's where we're going to get our waterproof and hardening abilities. And here's the stratum basale, or the basal layer, right? Which is the newest set of cells, and the oldest set of cells, or the dead ones, are all the way on the top. You have, of course, your Merkel cell, which is a sensory cell, and it's connected to a nerve. And nerves are colored yellow typically. They're not really yellow in real life, just like how arteries and veins aren't red and blue in real life. But in medical terms, that's called a convention. It's the signal that there's fat, and if it's a string like that, it's a nerve. You have melanocytes here, and the melanocytes, melanin. Melano means the color black or dark in medical terminology. People of color have more melanocytes because people of color have ancestry and genetics closer to the equator where UV radiation is more prominent. So if UV radiation is more prominent, you need more melanocytes to protect you from UV radiation. That means if you're darker skinned, right, and your hair is thicker and more kinky, and your eye color is darker, it's to protect you from UV radiation coming from the sun. Now, if you're from like Scandinavia and have blonde hair, blue eyes, and very fair skin, then you have less melanocytes, less protection from the sun, because if you live closer to the North or South Pole, there is less UV radiation up there than there would be than closer to the equator. And of course, if I have a lot of melanocytes, it will protect me from UV radiation. And if I'm a person of darker skin color, then I would have greater protection against things like skin cancer. But if I'm lighter skinned, the last thing I need to be is outside into the sun, or I must have protective measures to protect me from the sun. That's why if you look, but even if you're have a darker skin, you really shouldn't be out in the sun for extended periods of time. Typically from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. 4 p.m. is what they call the height of the azimuth, which is that's when the sun beats down on you and the UV really, really gets to you. And UV radiation, if you don't have a lot of melanocytes, UV radiation will start causing random mutations in all of these cells. And that's how you get cancer. That's all a cancer is. It's a broken cell that keeps on repeating itself, and it's abnormal, and it doesn't contribute to the surrounding area and just damages it. So Merkel cell we already talked about, that's touch. We also showed you the Pacinian corpuscle, which is deep touch. Okay, so the Merkel cell is near the level of the epidermis, so it's a lighter touch. We just already touched on melanocytes and melanin. In the stratum spinosum, there are these things called dendritic cells. They are essentially macrophages, and the ones that are located in your stratum spinosum are called Langerhans cells. So macrophage meaning macro, big, phage, eats. So what does it do? In your skin, since it's a protective function, it's going to have tons of bacteria, foreign body, and damaged cells due to UV and just due to just bumping into things, right? So you have the Langerhans cell, which are macrophages that will eat up all of that. The stratum granulosum, it has a lot of granules, and it of course has keratohyalin. We already know what keratin does, but what does hyalin do? It goes hyalin again, along with keratin, which gives it its grainy appearance. It strengthens that particular layer of the skin, and also adds to the layer of the accessory structures of your hair and your nails. Your nails also protect your skin. Those of us who've ever, if any of you ever met me in real life, you guys have probably seen my third digit left upper extremity. It's damaged because Humvee fell on it when I was a kid. And the nail bed grew weird. And I can tell you right now, for years, that finger and the surrounding area of touch was very sensitive because I didn't have a nail bed around it. But the lovely surgeons did a really great job. So, and also physical therapy did a really great job on getting my finger at least to look not deformed. It looked deformed for, I don't know, almost 2 years. I used to play piano, but I don't play it as proficiently as I used to. Now, why am I saying that? I'm saying that because anytime you have a pathology, when you survive it, you don't get stronger. Pathologies make you weaker, and that's why we always take histories of our patients, because we want to know what pathology is affected. Stratum luceum is the lucid or a translucent layer. Now, the stratum lucidum is this extra clear layer that is only found on thick skin? That's a lovely question, isn't it? So on your palms and your soles and on your your digits, which is your phalanges, your fingertips. Okay, so stratum lucidum is only found in thick skin. The stratum corneum, they call it the corny layer because of cornification, because it has keratin in it, lots of it. Okay, and again, cosmetic procedures, microdermabrasion, they removed all the upper layers. And oh man, if you've ever seen microabrasion, when they just do it, oh, it looks horrendous. One of my nieces just had it done. It looked like she was like in a really bad sunburn. But in theory, it's supposed to clear up the layers. But my opinion, soap and water does the same thing, and you don't have to spend thousands of dollars. Dermis. You have the papillary layer because you can see here, it looks like little fingers that are reaching in down into the dermis. And you could also see here where you have your pseudostratified squamous, right? There are all these little dead cells, and you can see here some more dead skin cells, and that'll protect the more basal layers and the papillary layer of your skin. And you could see how it's like this, so that it's very hard to remove that skin. It's easier to move this top. That's easy. All you have to do, scratch your skin. That's how you get ashy, right? But here, this will be hard to remove because you can see the papillary layer is really entrenched there. Okay. Now, the reticular layer, you could use your imagination a little bit, and that's a little deeper into the dermis. The reticular layer has a lot of elastin fibers, which gives elasticity to your skin. And we'll be talking about how that goes away when you get older. There's also collagen in there, which gives it its strength. That also goes away when you get older. Okay? So collagen injections, retinates, creams, I see it as a temporary fix, in my professional opinion. And that's why we talk about aging. You can't stop the aging process. Like retin-A and collagen injections and all that other stuff, it slows it down. But I'm already feeling some of these effects, and I'm only in my 50s. Heaven knows what I'm going to be like when I'm 60, 70. It's a frightening concept. Hypodermis, also known as the subcutaneous layer. Now, the big thing about the hypodermis or the subcutaneous layer is it's got a lot of vascularization. So it's got, if you cut to that level, it's going to bleed. And definitely it has a lot of adipose tissue. The functions of adipose tissue, its main function is lipid storage. Okay? But we as Americans, we eat way too much glucose. So the adipose or lipid stores way too much glucose. We eat way too much food. I had a Dr. Lee, she used to work with us, and I think she teaches for somebody else now. But she used to teach in the class right next to me, and she was telling me about how, because both of us are from Asian countries where there used to be a lot of thin people, but now there's a lot of fat people because they're adopting the more American diet lifestyle. And the American diet lifestyle is to excess. She asked me to monitor, just for a couple of days, how much food did I eat? Not to try to diet, but when I'm hungry, eat. And I monitored it along with some other colleagues of mine. It was almost 6,000 to 8,000 calories. And that's just me not paying attention. She was telling me typical diets are anywhere from 1,300 to 1,500 calories per day. But she was showing me evidence where a good healthy person could live on 900. And so what does that mean when you keep on eating that Big Mac? And also, let me put it in context. A typical Big Mac with fries is well over 2,500, almost to 3,000 calories. And that's just one meal. And not supersized either. Just a normal, medium Coke, medium fries, Big Mac. That's scary because I can easily eat 2 of them. But do I nowadays? No, can't. I can eat the healthy thing. I got to do the better thing because why are we studying all of this? Because of health and healthcare. And by the time you get sick, not much I can really do for you. But prescribe medications and prescribe things, and that's not fun. It's better to prevention and health prevention. If any of you taking my HSC 200 class and health behaviors, that's way more important. Because why deal with diabetes when you can prevent it? Why deal with heart attacks when you can prevent it? So lipids are very important, also known as adipocytes, also known as adipose tissue. And that's in your subcutaneous layer. And fat also serves as a storage for glucose. It also serves as a very good insulator. And that's why all of our nerves are wrapped in fat. And it also is a good cushion. You know, when you fall down on your butt or your buttocks, right? You know, it would be less painful if there's some stuff back there. Oh, this is the thing that I was talking about, melanocytes. If you have darker colored skin, you have more melanocytes. If you have lighter colored skin, you have less. And if you have more melanocytes, better protection against UV radiation, right? And lesser chance of, or lesser predisposition of cancers like BCC, basal cell carcinoma, which is a common thing. But even if you're a person of color and have darker colored skin, if you're outside and you're not protecting yourself, that's a problem. You're gonna get it. You may get it. You may get skin cancer. I've had several patients in my career that had darker skin, and I found things. And then of course, but you know, I'm internal medicine, so we usually give it over to the Department of Dermatology. Another important function that your skin does, and we already talked about sweat, we already talked about protection, we already talked about UV protection, we already talked about oil or sebaceous glands to keep my skin soft and supple, right? You could put all the creams you want, which is good, but better thing to do is have a good balanced diet, and your sebum or your sebaceous gland should take care of it. Another thing that good thing that UV radiation does in normal doses is vitamin D, right? We get it kind of from diet, but mostly from UV exposure, okay? But good UV exposure. Here's some example of some moles, which are abnormal accumulations of melanocytes that could lead to a melanoma, which is a tumor of your melanocytes. Okay. Here's vitiligo. Remember, melanocytes, if you have abnormality in your melanocytes, you're going to have these patchy parts, and even patchy parts in your hair. That's why, you know, remember when Michael Jackson was live? He was like saying, I got vitiligo. No, you don't. You just want to peel your skin. I don't know what the hell he was doing. But, you know, my production company, I've been in the music and entertainment field for more than 30 years. Man, fame makes weirdos. I've met a lot of people in the music business, and I met some of them when they were nobody, and I met them again when they were somebody, and they got real weird real fast. I grew up in New York City, so weird's easy. Hair. The hair has a hair shaft, and it's located in here in a sheath. It's associated with a sebaceous gland, and it makes sense because you need the sebum to make your hair a little bit greasy to make it soft and supple. Because if your hair gets too dry, it'll get brittle, it'll crack, and will break off. You also have your erector pili muscle here. You know, when you get either scared or get cold, the hair stands up. Well, who does that for you? The erector pili muscle. What else is going on? You want to talk about hair and skin, but hair and nails, they are living things, and they are part and parcel of the accessory items of your skin. So you could see here, if you lose your nail, like I did when the Humvee fell on it, actually I lost this part, and pieces of this and this, right? Ugh, gives me the willies thinking about it. I remember when it peeled over, I actually saw the bones in my finger. Man, and 18-year-old Nelson did not respond well, right? But hey, he survived. So you see here, and also, this is also the reason why we cut our nails to the nubs. You see all of this space? That is point source for infection. That's why if you have this free edge, the lovely nurse at the front desk will tell you, cut them or get out of my ward. And she or he will not be nice about it. Sudoriferous glands, again, part of your sweat glands, and the sweat homeostasis. When I'm hot, I'll sweat and I'll cool my body off. Okay? So your sweat glands, you have your sudoriferous and your eccrine, they're all for thermoregulation. And they're hypotonic because we don't like to throw out a lot of salt. Apocrine head gland, sweat gland, that's associated with hair follicles in the hairy areas like your armpit or your genitals. Now, the sweat doesn't really smell, okay? And this is the theory, even though, man, I've been a gym rat and I beg to differ, you smell. But when the water or the sweat comes out of these glands, they come out sterile. So your initial sweat shouldn't smell. But if it's down in a dark, damp place for an extended period of time, it's going to intermingle with all of the bacteria on your skin. And guess what? That's when it's going to smell. And also, your sweat also has kind of like a filtration function. All of us have been to the bar, right? Some of us drink, some of us don't. Some of us smoke, some of us don't. Have you ever been to a bar, you didn't drink, you didn't smoke, and you come home and you reek of cigarettes and alcohol? That's why I hate DJing. Well, when I have to do the DJing, because when I come home, my wife always smells me and says, "Oh my God, you've been smoking weed, or you've been doing this, you've been doing that." And I goes, "I haven't been doing anything. I'm there just playing stupid songs for drunk people." Right? But since I'm there, what happened? My skin and my lungs absorbed all that smoke, all that stuff, and then what did it do? It sweated all that stuff out, and then my clothes reek of it. That's why every time. That's why I have like a specific outfit for when I have events, because I know I'm gonna like reek of whatever. I mean, when I do events in a bar, let me justify that comment. But if I'm at a typical wedding, yeah, I just watch other people get drunk. I don't drink anymore either. Again, talked about protection, talked about prevention. I'm getting on. I'm not young anymore. I can't because I love smoking. I love alcohol. But there's a point in your life you got to say, do you really need it? Maybe don't. We mentioned the Meissner's and Pacinian corpuscles. And remember, Meissner's, tactile corpuscle, light touch. Pacinian, that's the one that's deeper, and that's your deep touch. And the Meissner's, remember, they're closer in the near the epidermis up here, and the Pacinian all the way deep in the dermis that we saw in the. And this is how I remember it. If you have two things that are opposites, memorize one like your life depended on it, and the other one is simply the other one. I always remember Pacinian as deep, or deep vibratory touch, because I take that P and I turn it around and it's a D. I don't know. Whatever you need to remember something for the rest of your life, that's what you got to do. And that's like 30 plus years, 30, 40 years of saying that. Oh, P, Pacinian, upside down, D, dermis, deeper, deep touch, vibratory sense. Let's see, what else? Vitamin D synthesis, we already talked about that. Okay, now they're getting into diseases, okay, which we're not going to get into. But a lot of it has to do with exposure. And the number two thing, if you're taking any exam and they mention smoking, it causes the cancer, right? How about liver cancer? Smoking. How about eye cancer? Smoking. How about hair cancer? Smoking, right? And cancer of the skin is no exception. So let's look at our goals and our tasks, and let's ask ourselves, did we talk about everything we needed to talk about? Did we talk about how skin is our first line of defense? Yes. Did we talk about the layers? Yep. Did we talk about how skin is for thermal regulation and how we're going to lose a little bit of water if I have to sweat? And just imagine if you have a fever, I got to watch out for dehydration, don't I? We're going to talk about the skin aging process in a minute. And again, I downplayed the diseases and disorders because this is anatomy physiology. It's not your pathology class. But I mentioned some of them. So let's give a moment to watching this video on the skin and aging process, and then we'll discuss some things that we have to think about, especially in our elder care or geriatrics ward.
This video will help you understand why you're what you can do to slow down the process and how to reduce the signs of aging you may already have. One of the primary reasons we age so differently is due to genetic factors. Just as genes from our parents determine our hair and eye colour, they also determine how we age. Your genes control several natural processes that cause your skin to age. Let us take a closer look at some of these different factors. Your skin is constantly renewing itself by shedding the old and damaged outer cells of the epidermis and replacing them with newer cells. This process keeps our skin looking fresh and revitalized. The lower layer of skin, or dermis, contains collagen and elastin fibers that also provides the skin with structure, support, and elasticity. Beginning in your mid-20s, the skin cell renewal process slows down, and your skin becomes thinner and more prone to damage from external elements like the sun, harsh weather, and pollution, producing a dull, rough, or uneven texture to the skin. In addition, the collagen and elastin fibers within the dermis begin to break down and diminish, so fine lines and wrinkles appear and the skin starts to sag. Lastly, the lipids, or natural fat, that protect the skin's surface against water loss, break down in response to changing hormone levels. The skin's natural moisture barrier therefore becomes leaky and allows water to escape, which is why your skin may become drier with age.
That is also why you have to be careful with your older patient regarding fever and regarding exposure to the sun, because dehydration is a serious thing. Your patient can die from it. And also the same thing for newborns. Dehydration and the ability of the skin to for water homeostasis, it's not so good with a newborn, and it's not so good with an older patient. Everybody in the middle should be okay and can handle it, but the older patient, it's one of the things I have to consider, especially if they have a fever.
Environmental factors can accelerate the normal aging process. Repeated long-term sun exposure is the primary cause of premature aging. Ultraviolet light from the sun causes melanocytes to produce too much pigment or colour, which results in the formation of freckles and age spots. Damage from sunlight also accelerates the breakdown of collagen and elastin in the dermis. This is why people who spend a significant amount of time outdoors without proper protection usually experience deeper lines and wrinkles and greater skin laxity. Mechanical factors also contribute to skin aging and include gravity and repetitive muscle movements. This is why people who have very expressive faces tend to have more lines around their eyes, mouth, and on their forehead. If you have maintained a good skincare routine and avoided substantial sun exposure, your skin should look and feel beautiful in your 20s and your 30s. Using a daily moisturizer with sunscreen and continuing to exfoliate will help keep your skin looking radiant. Signs of aging become increasingly apparent in your 40s and 50s. Although your skin can still look healthy and vibrant, the effects of long-term sun exposure, repetitive facial expressions, and the normal aging process start to accumulate. The fine lines around your eyes deepen, and forehead lines and glabellar lines may begin to appear. Age spots and other pigmentation irregularities generally start to appear in sun-exposed areas. If you would like to reduce the appearance of facial lines and wrinkles, non-surgical treatments like hyaluronic acid fillers may work well for you. Before you decide on any medical treatment...
Well, actually, I disagree. You can't stop genetics, honestly. Because if you have genetics that make you age or look older, then it is what it is. But taking care of your skin, keeping out of the direct contact to sunlight, that's important. And also, the person on the video, she mentioned exfoliation. You can buy all of those products. They're very expensive. My wife buys tons of stuff. I don't understand. Because exfoliation, when I learned it in dermatology, soap and water and you don't even need that, this loofah level scrub brush, like a light brush or even a nice old face towel, and wash your skin. It goes in the morning. Wash your skin. Goes at night, and because in the morning you're dehydrated, right? It's one of the first things actually that I do when I wake up. I have a drink. After you go to the bathroom, you got to drink of water because you have to replace and replenish. No matter what, even if I don't have a chance to get a shower or something like that, I really try to wash my face, because all that stuff that you've been exposed to during the course of the day, especially if you've been outside, especially if you've been in the ward, that's also a nice habit that my children have now. They've had it even before COVID, that when they come home from school, they immediately change into house clothes, and they immediately they take all of them take quick showers, because during the course of the day you get in contact with a whole bunch of things, and if you take care of this one barrier, then you'll take care of it. Takes care of a whole. Remember, all of your integumentary system doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's connected to a whole bunch of other things. So if you take care of your hygiene, you take care of your skin, you'll also be taking care of your immune system, because your skin is your front line, what they call innate or barrier. Now, what are the other barriers? The other barriers that were mentioned look at, let's see if they have. Well, here's an example. What's the best way to do this? Here's an example.
My job.
It's YouTube. No. Let's go back. Let's look at this pic. There's my Microsoft Word. Let's look at this picture. One barrier, of course, is your mucosal lining. This is your columnar epithelia, which lines both your gastrointestinal tract and your respiratory tract. And in between all of these, right, is this thing that looks like a wine glass, and it's called a goblet cell, G-O-B-L-E-T, like a goblet, like that holds wine. But this goblet cell makes mucus. Now, what's mucus? Mucus then builds up this yellow stuff, and then it covers all of this. So in your respiratory tract and in your gastrointestinal tract, stuff is floating around. Foreign body, potential pathogens, mycobacteria, you name it. And all this garbage floating around. Now, when it hits this mucus, even viruses stick onto the mucus. And then you have the cilia right here, which is these hair-like projections that kind of move the mucus up and out. And that's why you have the cough reflex. So, and a sneezing reflex. Because once that stuff starts building up, you sneeze and then you cough. So if you cough and you have a productive cough and that has phlegm, that phlegm is all the mucus that got pushed by the cilia up and out of your body. Don't try to not promote handkerchiefs. You know, a lot of older people have handkerchiefs. They blow their nose in it. My father-in-law still does it to this very day and then puts it in his pocket. That's not only gross, it is a point source of infection, and you got to get rid of it. When any of my kids are sick, they always have a box of tissues, and I throw out their garbage daily so that there won't be a spread of infection. So this mucus, which they state here in this slide, which I don't really believe is a chemical barrier, it is just like skin, that it's a physical innate barrier. And by innate, we mean you're born with it. And the cilia is part of that too. Another thing that is also part of one of your first lines of self-defense is your pH. Now, what's your pH? Now, human beings are in the middle. Okay? Their pH is around 7.4, give or take, around here. Now, what does pH really mean? It means the negative log of the concentration of the hydrogen ion. Now, sometimes we move our pH a little bit closer to this part, which is acidic, right? So that we can get rid of certain things that we don't like in our body. And same thing, if I move it over here, the pH would then be basic, also known as alkaline. Now, one of the main things that you'll notice is this, your stomach acids, which is at the level of 1, which means it has a lot of hydrogen ion. Hydrochloric acid is very acidic, and if you pour that out on your desk, it'll eat away at your desk because it's highly reactive. Now, you'd be wondering, well, Dr. Garais, if that's in my stomach, why doesn't it eat a hole through my stomach? Because remember we mentioned the mucosal lining? The mucosal lining of your stomach protects you from that. So typically we're neutral, but there's certain parts of our body that's going to be a little bit acidic. But if you're in the stomach, you're very acidic. Another example of a mildly acidic environment is the vaginal canal. The vaginal canal is relatively open to the outside world, right? It's only protected really by 2 sets of skin folds, your labia minora and your labia majora. That's not enough to protect it from stuff going in there. So whoever built us smart. Well, built women smart, and made the pH a little bit acidic so that if any potential pathologic bacteria gets in there, it'll get burned up or get reacted by the H plus or the hydrogen ion. It's acidic. Okay. Same thing with our skin. Have you ever like maybe you're like really tired, it's the end of the day, you maybe a little sweating. Hasn't your sweat ever burned your eyes a little bit? Happens. Another thing is also your tears. That also protects you. Your tears have enzymes in it. Enzymes eat up things. And if it eats up stuff that shouldn't be there, then it protects your outside layers. So your tears aren't only to keep your eyes moist. They have enzymes that also break down things. Oh, what else did they mention that we could talk about? Tears, mucus, cilia. We already talked about stomach. Well, this is supposed to be the word acid. Let's look at one last thing, and then we could call it a night. Hang in there. We're at the home stretch. Where is it? Another protective function that we also have, oh, here's some other extra videos that are nice, which is right here. Blood clotting. I don't like this video per se, but I want to find another video. I don't like that. But you could use it. Let's get this one. Let's see what this one.
So let's say you have to read an incredibly long email from your boss that you have to finish before the big meeting.
Do you remember tripping over as a kid and cutting your knee, and then magically the bleeding suddenly stops? Or have you ever wondered why this happens? Our body is very clever and produces substances to seal off the open wound. In this video, we are going to look at how and why blood clots. Clotting prevents us from bleeding to death, and also protects us from nasty disease-causing organisms called pathogens entering our body. When we injure ourselves, we can damage the blood vessels just below our skin.
Oh, by the way, this also happens naturally. There are hundreds of sites where it's just because of wear and tear, it just opens up. So if you didn't have platelets to form a blood clot, you'd bleed out, and that's the problem in hemophiliacs, isn't it?
This can cause blood to either leak into our tissue and form a bruise, or if the skin is broken, to openly bleed.
And then you have an infection here, not good.
To prevent these horrible things happening, blood clotting occurs. So let's have a look at how this happens. Starting with platelets. These are tiny cell fragments that float around in our blood. When a blood vessel is damaged, collagen is exposed. This collagen exposure attracts platelets to the injured area. The platelets then stick together to form a plug. They've quickly built a barrier that stops us from losing too much blood. However, this platelet plug isn't that strong, so it needs to be made stronger. A protein called fibrin does exactly that. In our blood, there are soluble fibrinogen proteins. At a wound, these soluble fibrinogen proteins are exposed to outside chemicals that aren't normally found in blood vessels. Like with the collagen and platelets, this exposure causes the fibrinogen proteins to turn into sticky fibrin fibers. The fibrin fibers form a mesh, holding all the platelets together and making a much stronger clot. More platelets, red blood cells, and other components in our blood all...
Now, remember, homeostasis. This has to be in the middle. It can't be too little, like in hemophiliac. I'll bleed out to death. And it also can't be too much, because if it was too much, you could see how this thing can go out of hand and then block this blood vessel. Then I get a stroke or a heart attack. So think of homeostasis as like a double-edged sword. It can't be too little and it can't be too much. Your body is always fighting to be in the middle and to be just right.
Stuck to the mesh, making it even stronger. This clot stops more blood escaping the body and also prevents nasty pathogens entering our body from the outside. The clot develops into a scab, which protects the wound as it heals, and new layers of skin form underneath.
That's why you always tell your kids, don't pick at it. It's going to be itchy because doesn't it make sense? You have growing things and things interfering with your subcutaneous tissue and your dermis, and it's going to start tickling your proscenium corpuscles. So it gets itchy. You're going to be tempted to start peeling at it.
So really, all a scab is just platelets trapped in the fibrin mesh. It is like putting a plug in a sink. When the new skin is fully formed, the scab will fall off, revealing the lovely brand new skin underneath. A final thing to note, remember that I said the exposure to the collagen causes the platelets to stick together, and the exposure to the outside chemicals causes the fibrinogen to turn into sticky fibrin. Both the platelets and the fibrin only become sticky after the exposure. This means in a normal, healthy blood vessel, they won't randomly cause clots. So from this video, you should understand.
And that's a problem. If I have too many clotting factors, the blood's going to get sticky. Also, another complicating thing is What if my patient's diabetic? They're going to have thick blood to begin with, so it's going to make the clotting process much worse or more excessive. So you could see now how you could easily look at normal, which we just showed you guys, and just push it too far or make it too little, and that's pathology. Now it is at this portion of the show, I'm going to stop the recording.